Hello, everybody. Welcome to my reInvent session on doing a deep dive on Amazon FSx for Windows File Server. My name is Prashant Bangale, and I'm a product manager for Amazon FSx, focusing primarily on the Windows File Server portion of our product. I'm excited to be talking to you about our service and how we can help you along your way. In terms of the agenda, we'll do a brief introduction into the context of the service itself, talk about file storage and how we can help you with your file storage use cases. We'll then talk about a set of customer use cases to understand what kind of workloads we are able to serve with Amazon FSx. And then we'll also do a deep dive into a series of topics covering various aspects of the service like availability, durability, performance, and so on. So let's dive right into it. What is Amazon FSx? It's a service that provides feature-rich and highly performant file systems that are fully managed by AWS. There's a lot of open source and commercial file systems out there, many of them very commonly used for many decades, in fact, by customers in various different workloads and use cases. Amazon FSx provides those file systems in a fully managed way to make it simpler for you to provision, scale, and use your file storage in the cloud. Amazon FSx for Windows File Server is one service within the Amazon FSx family that provides fully managed file storage that's built on Windows Server, and it provides native Windows file storage via industry standard SMB protocol. At the same time, while it provides this feature-rich Windows file storage, it is also deeply integrated with AWS and with a rich set of other AWS services in order to provide you the agility, scalability, and reliability of the cloud. Let's get to the question of why you would consider moving your file storage to Amazon FSx. First of all, it provides you file systems that you're already used to, that your applications and users are already used to in terms of a rich feature set and in terms of giving you the same levels of performance. Secondly, it provides you a path to have simple and seamless migration so that everything just works. You don't have to worry about changing, re-architecting, or modifying your workflows. Third, it provides you a rich set of features around agility, scalability, and automation that the cloud brings you. Specifically here, we are talking about being able to spin up and spin down file storage as needed. We are talking about scaling storage and throughput as needed. We are talking about automating your workflows and making it really simple for you to consume file storage for the variety of workloads that you might have. Last but not the least, it provides a rich set of flexibility options in terms of price performance so that you're able to optimize your file storage for your specific application needs and achieve both the level of performance that you need as well as the level of cost optimization that you need. Let's look at these in a little more detail. When we say fully featured, secure, reliable, and scalable, what do we mean? When you look at enterprise file storage, there's a rich set of features, capabilities, and price performance options that are required to actually make your workload successful in terms of the continuity of what you're already used to in terms of your existing file storage. But there's also a rich set of security, reliability, and scalability features that you're looking to get by way of moving to fully managed file storage in the cloud. So if you look at that full combination, we check a lot of boxes, as you can see in this slide. I don't intend to go through each of these in detail in this slide, but suffice it to say, across a variety of different categories, whether it's accessibility, whether it's administration features, availability and durability features, performance and scale, being able to dynamically scale your file storage, being able to achieve the right level of cost optimization, performing data protection on an as-needed basis, as well as, of course, table stakes, security, and compliances. Across all of these categories, Amazon FSx checks all of the key boxes that your workloads would require. Amazon FSx, in addition to being fully featured, like we just talked about, is also deeply integrated with the AWS ecosystem, with a rich set of other AWS services. If you look at security, for example, we integrate with Amazon VPC to provide you private network connectivity. We integrate with IAM for access policies and for administration access controls. We integrate with KMS for encryption and encryption key control. We integrate with directory service in order to provide you native integration with Active Directory, with AWS Managed Active Directory in particular in this case. And then if you look at monitoring and automation, we integrate with CloudWatch and CloudTrail to allow you to monitor both your performance metrics as well as your API actions or administrative actions. We also integrate with AWS CloudFormation to help you automate your overall workflows of spinning up file systems, scaling file systems, making them accessible to your applications and users, and so on and so forth. In terms of compute instances, we actually provide a really rich set of compute instance access options, whether it's Amazon EC2 instances, VMware Cloud on AWS VMs, Amazon AppStream 2.0 or Workspaces instances in the case of end-user computing, as well as new as of just a couple of weeks back, we now integrate with Amazon ECS so that you can have persistent shared file storage available to your containers, Windows containers that are running on Amazon ECS. Last but not the least, we integrate with AWS Data Sync in order to make it really simple and seamless for you to move your data back and forth between your existing file systems and FSx to migrate, or between multiple FSx file systems, for example, to do cross-region replication, that sort of thing. We also integrate with AWS Backup. This is new as of a couple of weeks back as well. We now integrate with AWS Backup to allow you to do centralized backup policy management across not just your FSx file systems, but across a host of other AWS resources as well, so that you can centrally manage your entire workloads, resources in one place in terms of the backup policy and compliance. So as you can see, in combination, we integrate with a rich set of AWS services to provide you a really powerful, compelling set of capabilities outside of what the native Windows file storage itself provides, which is what we run behind the scenes. In terms of availability, our service is available in 19 regions globally as of this time. We are always expanding to further regions, and we expect to be available in all commercial regions globally very soon. And as you can see, we are available across the globe, whether it's the Americas, EU, or APAC. This slide just gives you a sense for the pace of innovation we have been at for the last couple of years. So we launched this service back in the end of 2018, during reInvent 2018. Since then, as you can see, our team has been busy launching a whole bunch of features and capabilities, as well as launching our service in additional regions to make it more globally available. Some things that I would like to point out here and sort of highlight are the support that we launched for directly integrating your Amazon FSx file systems with your own existing on-premises or corporate Active Directory. In this case, what we did was we made it really simple for you to just take your existing Active Directory with all of your existing identities, access controls as they are, without needing to make any changes, make any migrations whatsoever on the identity side, and just link up your FSx file system directly into your existing Active Directory without even using another AWS managed AD in between and using a trust relationship and all of that. So it's really simple. When you create a file system, all you need to do is link it up to your existing Active Directory, point it to your Active Directory's domain controllers, domain name, and so on. And voila, your file system is directly linked to your existing AD, and all of your existing users and applications continue to access your file data as they would otherwise in your existing file storage. Another thing that we released last year was an option to do native multi-AZ deployment. So with this, you can just check a box when you're creating a file system, and we make it really simple for you to have multi-AZ availability and durability for your file system. And I'll talk a little more about what I mean by that in a couple of slides. We also launched support more recently in June of this year, support for live scaling of both storage and throughput on your file system. So with this, with the click of a button, you can scale up the storage capacity on your existing file system. You can also scale up or down the throughput capacity on your file system. And this way, you can actually meet the changing needs of your applications as time passes without needing to move data back and forth, without needing to switch file systems, or even having any sort of availability impact to your file workloads. Another one that we launched most recently was support for file system aliases. With this, you can basically configure your FSx file system with one or more aliases, or alternate names, if you will, so that you can actually access your file system using these aliases. And that way, when you move your existing file data over to Amazon FSx, you don't have to change the naming, the referencing of your file shares for your applications and users. So they continue to call your file data with the same names, with the same reference path names, and so on, and everything just works. You can just, behind the scenes, point your DNS alias to point to the FSx file system, and everything just works for your end users and applications. So that's a really cool feature we launched just a couple of weeks back that makes it super simple for you to migrate and still hold on to all of your existing workflows, applications, code, scripts, and so on. Here's a glimpse of customers that are using Amazon FSx and are benefiting from a range of different features and capabilities that we talked about just now. I'll be going into a little more detail about some of these customers, and I'd love to highlight some of them in terms of their use cases. But before that, I just wanted to share with you a glimpse of the breadth and the variety of customers that are using Amazon FSx and are benefiting from migrating their file storage over to AWS using Amazon FSx. Having talked about the brief introduction and having talked about the benefits of the service at a very high level, let's jump into some of the use cases. If we look at use cases, we think the best way to talk about use cases and to help you understand the variety of workloads that we are able to serve with the service is actually to talk about real-world customer use cases and how real-world customers are being able to leverage Amazon FSx to achieve a range of objectives that they might have. So let's look at the set of use cases that Amazon FSx serves. We built the service with a wide spectrum of use cases in mind, everything from general purpose migration of on-premises network-attached storage, or NAS, devices, to running line of business applications that are business critical for your business workloads, to hosting content for content management systems, so that you're able to serve content that are stored as files onto either web serving workloads or to end user content management systems, and so on. We also serve a really important use case when it comes to end user computing. A lot of customers use Amazon FSx to provide persistent storage for a range of virtual desktop applications and application streaming applications, where they're using Amazon Workspaces or Amazon AppStream 2.0 instances, or many times even on-premises devices like laptops and desktops, and then they're using FSx to provide the persistent storage for these end-user devices and for these end-user shares, if you will. We also serve backup and disaster recovery use cases across a variety of workloads, including database backups. And then last but not the least, a really important use case that has become super common and prominent for our service is to use FSx to provide persistent storage for databases when you're running highly available SQL Server deployments. So let's walk through each of these use cases by way of looking at customer examples. because we think that's really the best way to highlight how FSx helps in each of these cases. So let's look at the general purpose NAS migration use case first. Venerable Annuities is a company that was tasked with a short time frame to depart from their data center as part of their divestiture from another business. They chose AWS to avoid the costs and overheads of building out a new data center. And they needed something with greater agility, with easier management for their hundreds of users for processing financial data. They were able to use Amazon FSx for Windows File Server and migrate over all of their financial modeling data for their hundreds of users about 6 months earlier than expected in terms of the original time frame. And this resulted in significant savings for them, both in terms of time and effort. And they were able to migrate hundreds of their users and leverage shared storage to provide them with the financial risk modeling capabilities and so on. And this gives you a good sense for how you can just use existing on-premises file storage, move it over, and then make it completely transparent and seamless as far as your end users and their modeling workflows or whatever other application workflows are involved. If we move to the next use case, which is line of business applications, Epic, which is the largest e-discovery service worldwide, was tasked with reducing costs for their e-discovery platform, which relies on shared storage for a variety of platforms to assist legal firms in electronic discovery to prepare for their court cases. As their cloud-based platform grew, it became challenging to manage file storage themselves, and the costs were also increasing. So they looked to Amazon FSx to replace their several hundreds of terabytes of self-managed Windows file shares with fully managed SMB file storage in the cloud. And Amazon FSx provided them with this common file share between their various e-discovery platforms, including Relativity, Nuix, and AppV. And this way, they were able to get the performance they needed, but also they were able to achieve higher availability than they could on their own using their self-managed storage solutions. If we move to the next one, which is content management use cases, Emirates Airlines is a good example. They were able to migrate their core booking engine to AWS, leveraging Amazon FSx to provide reliable file shares for their content management system. They are delighted with the 37% performance increase and with the fact that they were able to improve reliability with their content management system as well. The next use case is persistent storage for workspaces and AppStream 2.0 instances for end-user compute devices, essentially. Eloy is a good example here. It's a company that provides a case platform for legal professionals in New York and New Jersey. They were able to pivot to remote working successfully. But while doing so, they were also able to improve the productivity of thousands of their legal professionals by way of leveraging Amazon FSx as the persistent shared storage across the thousands of Amazon Workspaces instances for those legal professionals. If we look at backup and disaster recovery use cases, AdvancedMD is a prime example here. They're a company that provides a cloud suite of medical office software to nearly 37,000 medical practitioners. They were able to reduce the time that they were spending on managing SQL Server database backups by 85% because they used Amazon FSx. And then this was in spite of a 400% spike in demand because of their telemedicine application experiencing spikes due to COVID-19. They are now able to better focus on meeting their business needs, and they don't need to worry about managing backup infrastructure, backup workflows, that sort of thing. They're able to spend many hours less on all of those things each day. Last but not the least, if you look at the highly available SQL Server database use case, this one is a use case that's quickly picking up to be one of our most important use cases. Avio Aero is a good example here. They are a GE aviation business. They were able to simplify their Microsoft SharePoint deployment and reduce costs by 60% by leveraging Amazon FSx to switch from needing to use SQL Enterprise licenses to using SQL Standard licenses, and that helped them significantly save costs. So with that, we now have a good understanding of the overall benefits of the service. We've also looked at a wide variety of use cases that Amazon FSx is able to serve. Let's now dive deep into some topics around the service. There are 6 areas that we will dive deep into today: availability and durability, performance and scale, cost effectiveness, data protection, security, and then migration. So let's go through these one by one. If we look at availability and durability, Amazon FSx as a fully managed service takes care of ensuring high availability and high durability for your file storage. All you need to do is, while creating a file system, select which kind of availability, durability you would like for your file storage, depending on your workload's needs. We provide 2 kinds of deployment options, single AZ and multi-AZ. With the single availability zone deployment type, you get a file storage infrastructure that's situated within a given availability zone. In this case, the service continually monitors and addresses any hardware failures, any component failures, and it also replicates data within an availability zone of your choosing. If you choose multi-AZ, as I mentioned earlier when I talked through the pace of innovation slide, we allow you to just check a box to say you want multi-AZ availability and durability for your file system. When you do that, not only do we continually monitor and address hardware failures, not only do we replicate data within an availability zone, we also replicate data across multiple availability zones, and we provide automatic failover across availability zones as well by making use of synchronous block level replication for the replication itself on the data side, and then by making use of automatic failover and failback technologies on top of the cluster of file serving nodes across the multiple availability zones. One area we'd like to dive deeper into within the availability and durability topic is the support for SQL Server highly available deployments. So within multi-AZ file systems, there's a specific feature we now support called SMB continuous availability, which allows you to run SQL Server failover clusters on top of Amazon FSx storage. So if we take a step back and look at the SQL Server highly available deployment options, the technology called SQL Server Always On has 2 options. One is called Always On Availability Groups, and the other is called Always On Failover Clusters. With availability groups, the data is replicated at the database log level, meaning at the application level, and storage is local to each node within the SQL cluster. With failover clusters, the SQL nodes in the cluster share the same underlying shared storage underneath. So with this, each of the nodes is referring to the same shared storage, and therefore you're now able to do failovers at the instance level and have all of the storage instantly be available for the failed over node as well. Now, if you wanted to do this kind of failover cluster deployment, you would have needed to deploy, manage, and pay license fees for storage replication software solutions from third-party providers earlier. Now, with Amazon FSx supporting SMB continuously available file shares and supporting the use of the file shares to store SQL databases for SQL failover clusters, you can just easily spin up a fully managed native multi-AZ file system, configure shares as continuously available, and easily configure failover clusters and use SQL failover clusters for your applications. So we make it really simple for you to do so. If you look at why you would use SQL Server failover clusters over the availability group option within Always On, there's primarily a couple of different reasons. First, it's cost effective because now you can use SQL standard license as well, rather than needing to use SQL Enterprise, which is often the case with availability groups. You can also maximize the number of databases and not be limited by a max number of databases per SQL deployment, like you would be with availability groups. And then you can also right-size the SQL EC2 instance so that you don't have to worry about provisioning the EC2 instance to serve your storage needs. You only need to provision the EC2 instance from a CPU and memory perspective. All the storage is anyway going to go over the network layer over to the FSx shared storage, rather than going through a specific storage interface and needing to provision the EC2 instance for your storage performance needs, for your I/O performance needs. It's also more familiar in terms of a deployment type, generally for common scenarios on premises. And then it's faster because the replication is handled at the storage layer rather than at the SQL compute layer. So it frees up the CPU memory on your database server. Last but not the least, it's really simple to use compared to the availability group option, because for database administrators, it's really easy to ensure high availability. You don't need to worry about also ensuring high availability by replicating SQL agent jobs and SQL logons and all of that. All of that is included as part of your SQL failover cluster instance. Let's move to performance and scale next. Amazon FSx provides fast and flexible performance. We provide multiple gigabytes per second of throughput per file system, and also hundreds of thousands of IOPS per file system in terms of scale. And when you organize your data across multiple file systems, you can actually scale out even further to tens of gigabytes per second of throughput or millions of IOPS across your data set. And your users and applications can access them as one common namespace using Microsoft DFS namespaces. We also allow you to scale storage and throughput dynamically in a live way on your file system without impacting your availability or without needing you to switch file systems or anything like that. We allow you to select throughput independently from storage. And what this allows you to do is optimize your file storage for your specific application needs and only pay exactly how much, pay for exactly how much performance you're using. And then most importantly, we provide consistent sub-millisecond latencies, which is often really important for Windows-based enterprise applications, for Windows-based end-user applications, and so on, in order to give them a near local storage experience in terms of performance. And then we also support some advanced features of SMB, like SMB multi-channel, so that you're able to scale to much higher levels of throughput and IOPS with a single client by way of leveraging multiple connections between the same client and the file system. In terms of cost effectiveness, our pricing is super compelling when it comes to the storage pricing. For SSD storage, we have the price at 13 cents per gigabyte month for single AZ and 23 cents per gigabyte month for multi-AZ. On HDD storage, we actually provide the lowest cost file storage in the cloud when it comes to SMB shared file storage. Our price is 1.3 cents per gigabyte month for single AZ and 2.5 cents per gigabyte month for multi-AZ. Now, what's even better is we support a feature called data deduplication, and with that, you're now able to achieve even further savings on your costs. With a typical savings from deduplication being about 50%, your effective price is basically about 0.65 cents per gigabyte month on HDD storage in single AZ, which is far less than a cent per gigabyte month, which is a really compelling price point. In terms of data protection, we support two different features, shadow copies and backups. On shadow copies, we basically support the ability for end users to do self-service restores of individual files and folders to previous versions. What this provides is a consistent point-in-time file system snapshot. It's stored in line with the file system. It's incremental, so only changes since the last snapshot consume additional storage. And then it's automatable by way of customizable schedules. And it's really convenient because your end users don't even need to involve your administrator to go back in terms of previous versions. There's an additional data protection mechanism that we provide also, which is backups. And you can use this for compliance and for file system level recovery. What backups provide is a consistent point-in-time view of the file system. They're durable, they're stored in Amazon S3, so they give you the 11 nines of durability of S3. They're incremental, so only the changes since the last backup stored are going to be charged for the backup storage price. And then they're also automatable by way of multiple different options. You can either just choose the simple daily automatic backups option on FSx, or you can choose the AWS backup integration that we launched just a couple of weeks back. FSx file systems are likely not the only component where you move your workloads to your cloud. It will be applications, databases, file storage, and so on. You'll now be able to use RDS, FSx, EC2, EBS, all of these different services resources, and manage the backups across them using AWS Backup in a centralized way by applying centralized backup policies. The next topic is security and compliances. This is a really important one, and this is oftentimes a table stakes feature. We support a wide variety of capabilities here. All data is always encrypted at rest with Amazon FSx, and you can use keys managed in AWS Key Management Service, or KMS. You can use either service-owned keys or even customer-managed CMKs. We also support encryption of data in transit using SMB encryption. We also allow you the option to enforce encryption in transit as an additional security mechanism. In terms of access controls, we provide 3 different layers of access controls. At the individual file and folder level, we support the Windows Access Control Lists, or ACLs, by way of integrating with your organization's Active Directory. At the network level, we allow you to control network traffic using Amazon VPC security groups and network ACLs. And at the administration API level, we allow you to do access control using AWS IAM policies. In terms of monitoring and logging, we support AWS CloudTrail integration. And then in support of compliances, we actually support a wide range, including PCI, ISO, SOC, GDPR, HIPAA, and most recently, IRAP as well. The last topic I'd like to talk about is simple and seamless migration. If you migrate to Amazon FSx, there's really no need to modify your existing applications or user workflows. We integrate with your existing Active Directory. You can use your existing access control lists. You can use your existing DNS names, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of aliases. You can even migrate your existing file share configuration, your shadow copy settings, and all of those things. And finally, you can simplify the actual migration process itself. So the result of all of this migration support is that customers say, everything just works when I move my file data over to FSx. Specifically on that last topic, you can use AWS Data Sync to migrate your file data over, and Data Sync makes that task really easy. On your existing on-premises file storage, from where you're migrating, all you need to do is install the AWS Data Sync agent and then fire up a Data Sync task. Data Sync service will take care of setting up the secure tunnel, migrating your file data in an optimal way, allowing you to do network bandwidth controls and all of those things. The entire data movement is done in a fully managed way using SMB, so it's the same protocol throughout. This means there's no refactoring, there's no re-architecting. All you need to do is use this service to easily migrate your data as is. So that brings us to the end of our Dive Deep session. I'd like to refer you to some of the related sessions to this topic, which I list over here on this slide. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about Amazon FSx. Hope this has been useful for you.